the tears in my eyes.
The cream of the crop. Acknowledge me.
Episode 347 of Top Rope Nation. I am your host for this morning, Jesse Velasquez. We are currently 50% of the way done with the year 2024. There was a pay-per-view last night, AEW's Forbidden Door. I have someone here who was in attendance for it. You all know him quite well. Patron of the show. Also, Frank Peteani, you are no stranger. How are you?
Jesse, what's going on, man? Glad to be on the show with you today, and glad I can offer an in-person perspective. You know, having been in the building last night, I can't say no to an AEW show in the UBS Arena, as history has proven, because I have been to every one that has been there. So, yeah, looking forward to talking about it. Yeah, there's been about 3 Dynamites there, I want to say, 3 or 4. So been to all of them, and this was the first pay-per-view in the building last night. So, yeah, absolutely wanted to be there.
This is pay-per-view 2?
No, so you're thinking of World's End, probably. That was Nassau Coliseum.
Okay.
Yeah, and we went to that too. So, and I think you, me, and Ryan actually talked about that the day after. We, the 3 of us, discussed that. So, yeah, this was the first pay-per-view at the UBS Arena.
Got it. 6 months ago. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Well, before we get into all the nooks and crannies of the show, I got to do what Ryan does from a housekeeping perspective. And that, as always, is to show the bottom line, the ticker, the lovely patrons of Top Rope Nation. We may see a few here today, I would assume, since it is roughly 3:30 in the UK, or at least close to. So maybe we'll get some people catching on here at the end of the show, or the midpoint of it. Patreon.com/Top Rope Nation. Again, all those lovely patrons. I see Frank's name right there. There's about 45 of us now, I believe. And we just recorded 2005 WWE's Vengeance show. Overall, I felt was very good. We all gave it our thumbs up, especially for the second half of the show. So we have over 150 bonus archive shows. We have 55 classics, TR and Unplugged, which Frank has been on with me a few times. We have that available. And we have also added a network, which Ryan will be talking about, I'm assuming, next week. We're in the midst of filling out our roster. There is Carl, as he has just clocked off the shoot job. Thank you so much, as always. Carl has been on this show a handful of times as well. We appreciate you joining us on this lovely morning. All right, Frank, I know this might not be your favorite. I'm not 100% sure. I had a hard time this morning trying to decipher what to give AEW Forbidden Door last night, grade-wise. So let's start with you. A through F. And then I'm going to show the Twitter response, which is not too old. I think it's like 2 hours.
I give it a B. Okay, I give it a B. I thought it was a very good professional wrestling show, right? In and of itself. If we separate the build to it and whatnot, or lack thereof, the lack of investment in a lot of matches, and there was, let's be honest, but watching the show and seeing the matches unfold and whatnot, I can't sit there and say, I don't want to take the build and say, this show sucked. That's not fair. I judge it on what I see with my 2 eyes. And, I thought it was pretty good. I mean, I thought that I expected a little bit more, at least from one match that we'll talk about a little bit later on. And maybe that would have pushed it to an A. But I think overall, given the performances of everybody, I think a B is a fair grade.
I went B+, the highest of Bs. I was very, very close to giving it the lowest of As. And I'll get into the reasoning, rationale, why here momentarily. I'd say 40% of the show was excellent. I believe there were 10 main card matches. I'd say 4 were excellent. Then you had 2 to 3 that were just, they definitely took some points away from the show. Yeah. And the other 3 were just there. But again, it's really hard to grade something that from a storyline perspective is irrelevant. Most of it is. I will say, though, I believe this is the first time in the 3 years, and of course, we'll probably get into the New Japan stuff later, where we actually had AEW versus AEW matches going on. Six Man's only had one New Japan performer on it, so it was more of there was more of intra-promotional stuff going on, AEW versus AEW, etc.
Yeah. And I'll tell you this, I was texting with Brandon LeClaire from the Torch last night, and we both started thinking about Survivor Series 2016 to 2021, associating this pay-per-view with that era. And that is not that's not something that you want, because a lot of what took place, during those Survivor Series pay-per-views was really irrelevant, and hate to say it, a lot of what, took place last night was kind of irrelevant too, save for a couple of title matches. So if that gives you any indication of where, at least I'm thinking.
No, I think you're 100% right now. I got to make sure to pull this up correctly, which I just did. We're going to screen share for a moment, and it is very, very small. Here are the grades so far. Again, not many votes in. It's split down the middle right now between A and B at 41.2%. The C grade is at 14.7%, and D to F is only at 2.9%. That is very, very low for a poll.
Yeah.
So, very thankful to see that the trolls didn't come out in droves this morning. There we are.
Yeah, I can't see. I can't see giving the show an F. That's just not fair. I mean, C or D, C, we can have a conversation. That's fine. But we start going into D and F. That's just not fair.
Carl agrees with you, Frank. B on the nose, where he's taking everything into account.
That's my guy, Carlo.
Educated pro wrestling fans. And again, Facebook group, Top Rope Nation. Facebook group. We just added a new member here recently. Might be adding another here momentarily. With all that being said, do you want to start with the main event, or do you want to start backwards with the hometown guy?
Whatever you want to do. The main event probably, while we're fresh and ready to go, the main event, has a lot of good discussion. So I would say let's start there. That's a good idea.
That's where most of my notes lie, to pretty much no one's surprise here on this show. With my first couple of sentences saying, Will Ospreay paying tribute to the late great Hayabusa is tremendous stuff. Breathe, Jesse. This is going to light your soul on fire.
Two of your favorite guys.
Could be probably my two current going, I would definitely say. I mean, Swerve has definitely won a large spot on that roster. There's zero question about that. This is his first main event as an AEW World Champion, which is nuts to think about. Or no, this is as the champion, because he won the title in the main event of Dynasty versus Samoa Joe.
Right, and he retained it at Double or Nothing. And I think there was a title defense of 2 on TV. I can't remember. There might have been. I can't remember who he defended against on TV, but definitely at Double or Nothing against Christian.
This match went 27 minutes, longest on the show. The chemistry is definitely there. They look like two different humans from 8 years ago when they last wrestled each other in a ring. The build was very good for this. Swerve making this personal. Ospreay finally just getting set off. Just saying, all right, now I know I need to take this to another level to get to where I want to be. Before we get into some of the blow-by-blow, Frank, what did you think of this match as a whole? Did it live up to the expectations, and how high were they going in?
I thought it was one of the best main events I've ever seen at any show attending in person. I thought it was one of the best matches. It was one of those matches that, like, I didn't even think about these guys being the top guys. These guys felt like the top guys. It felt like they arrived, And I think maybe there was a little bit of question about Swerve, going in, or even when he won the title, could he occupy the top spot in the company? That question was answered without question, without a shadow of a doubt. And Ospreay, Ospreay is right there too. And you could tell by the crowd reactions. Obviously I didn't see the pay-per-view on TV. You saw the, you saw the broadcast, but in the building, in the match before, all right, which we'll talk about later. You could hear a pin drop. And I just think that everybody was waiting for this match to take place. Like this was the big present. You know, like on Christmas, we got all the presents, and like there's the big present. You wait and open the big present, and everything else on the show was the clothes that you get, and all the stuff that I don't give a crap about this. Like they just want that. And as soon as those entrances took place, the crowd was into it. You got a little bit of dueling chants going on. Whose house? Swerve's house. Ospreay. All of that. But just engagement in the match right from the get-go. We'll get to the finish here in a little bit. I think there's a little bit of discussion there. I didn't care for multiple finishers getting kicked out of. Because I think there were two of the big kicks that he does, and I think he did his stomp, and Ospreay kicked out of that. And Swerve kicked out a Stormbreaker, et cetera, et cetera. So that does kind of drive me crazy, but I can understand it for this match. I can understand the drama they were trying to build, so I'll forgive that. But just two guys that felt like the main event right from the jump, and solidified themselves in that top spot for AEW.
So when Will Ospreay went into the heavyweight division in with New Japan, as we all know, he was a junior for 3.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
He eventually took the Stormbreaker on as his finishing move when his size got larger. And I can't recall too many people, if anyone, kicking out of that in New Japan. That's how devastating of a finisher it is, because he's been using the Hidden Blade recently. He teased the Tiger Driver 91. Meanwhile, me knowing Ospreay's history and saying, okay, the Stormbreaker is the most lethal thing he has, and he really hasn't. I think he's only used it a handful of times, and the one thing I'm starting to dislike, like you just mentioned it, AEW, it's been kicked out of every time.
They're getting into the bad New Japan habits, watching Okada Tanahashi matches, Naito, you name it. How many Destinos do we see getting kicked out of? How many Rainmakers do we see getting kicked out of, et cetera, et cetera. And, it gets to a point where you're just ruining the integrity of a finisher, and I was thinking about that going, as we were getting ready to leave, like, I know sometimes, we think about some of Kevin Nash's ideas, but, Kevin Nash is very big on protecting finishers, and he's kind of right. You go back, jackknifes, he wouldn't hit the jackknife unless the match was over. Brett wouldn't put the sharpshooter on unless the guy was going to tap out, when you go up and down the list. So, and I don't know when this started. I was trying to figure out when all of this started, at least stateside. I know New Japan does it, but it's just, I wish they would, or I wish they would be a little more diligent about that. I don't mind necessarily kicking out of finishers, but when you do it multiple times, in the same match, now you're starting to ruin the idea of doing it. So yeah, that was definitely an issue for me.
No, I'm 100% with you. I the Swerve stomp, I don't believe it's been kicked out a handful of times, but not too many, especially not since he's become champion. That's another thing too. There wasn't a lot of telegraphing, so again, we kind of went into just how the impact of all these moves, everything looked great. The psychology was good. Swerve, I think, with one of the spots of the year. And Ospreay, if you see the replay, kind of jumped into it. That stomp that was right on the edge of the Spanish announce table. And I think that was right below where you were sitting.
Yes, the stomp to the outside. So we were in section 215. So basically we're opposite the entrance. So we had a good view of we had a good view of Swerve jumping off the top, and that looked crazy from that angle. It looked crazy. And I think a few minutes after that, and this is another beef I have with Ospreay. Okay. A couple of minutes later, he's just up and everything is okay, and that's something that they have to address. They have to have him sell a little bit more, I didn't think it was that egregious last night, but it was definitely still there. And, Just you got to sell something like that a little bit better, because I think he was setting up for the Stormbreaker like not too long after that. So,
which is something I'm going to tap into. One of the matches that was later or earlier in the card, but kind of late towards the end, where I had a huge problem with the selling, but to nobody's surprise here, Carl agrees with us in terms of the finisher kick out point, more pointed with the Stormbreaker, as at least in New Japan, they tended to protect the move and the respect of it, or it will end, much like the Rainmaker, which, by the way, I'll just get it out of the way now. No one's kicked out of the Rainmaker in AEW.
No. But how many matches has Okada? You know what I mean? Like, how many matches has he had? You know, I mean, I feel like Okada has said bitch more than he's wrestled.
That's very true, and so is Max Caster. But again, we'll get into that later.
But enough about annoying rappers.
Oh. What did you think of those barricade spots also, where they were just right on top of it, kind of toying the line, the pile driver on top of the barricade from Swerve also?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
They didn't do it the first time. I feel like he did like a Hurricane Rana, but then the second time they were out there, he finally got to it. And I'm like, excuse me. I'm like, dude, he's got to be precise. I mean, one slip and damn, you know, I mean, you think about it, like if you're setting up for a pile driver on the railing, your feet, your footing and everything like that, it has to be so precision. Otherwise, forget about it, you know. So, but they got it right.
Yeah, you mentioned it, by the way. The first spot on the edge of the barricade was a Hurricane Rana where Ospreay grabbed Swerve, threw him into the ring, and just hit this ridiculous flying forearm where I think he's gotten higher than he's ever gotten on one of those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Into a 2 count, and as I believe he was setting up for an Os cutter, like running into the ropes, Swerve immediately reversed it into a phenomenal backbreaker too.
Yeah, I think that was the Os. Was that the Os cutter on the outside that he was going for? Is that what you're talking about?
That was, I believe, on the inside. So that was after the fact. So I know that the Hurricane Rana, they rolled him in, flying forearm, same thing. Backbreaker was also on the inside. There was a. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say the spot on the outside, setting up for the Oscar. I'm like, he's gonna do this on the apron. Like that's another thing. Like you got to be precision on that. You know, you gotta, because otherwise, forget about it. You know, you go to the outside, go to the floor. It could be bad news.
Yeah, the Oscar you're talking about on the side of the ring literally was 2 moves before Swerve hit that insane stomp on the edge of the Spanish announce table.
Yeah. Well, Spanish announce table.
Which, by the way, is it still? No, it's the guy from the 90s, Carlos. What's his last name?
The Carlos Cabrera?
Something along those lines.
Yeah, something like that.
There was a picture that surfaced online. I believe it was AEW Spanish early on video, like 3, 4, 5 hours before the pay-per-view, just previewing it, and he's starting to look a little bit like Vince McMahon.
Oh, no.
I'm talking from like 2006.
Oh, Lord.
Where it was scaring a lot of people into thinking that, oh, no, is AEW starting to travel the WWE route? It was a joke. I thought it was.
Oh, no.
I thought it was kind of funny.
Sexual deviant looks like? Ooh.
Yeah. And then I saw, as they went to that spot, I saw him like standing up, and I go, he does kind of resemble Vince a little bit.
Oh, no.
I might try to pull it up later on in the show if I remember, but yeah, do your due diligence. I think it is Carlos Cabrera, one along those lines. So,
what if it's an AEW, pal? That'd be some good shit.
Yeah, no thanks. There's another McMahon apparently that has been asked about. Yeah, exactly. That's not going to happen either. All right. So Ospreay knocks out the referee with a hidden blade elbow as Swerve reverses the Tiger Driver.
Mm-hmm.
Swerve, and now this is where we get this spot. And Don Callis, not many people are huge fans of him.
No.
What did you think of his inclusion in the match? I understand that Ospreay's with the Don Callis family, but he really hasn't gone down the heel route since he's officially signed with the promotions. After the Takeshita match, he's kind of broken away.
It's the strangest situation. Like the affiliation with Don just needs to end, but it's still there, but they don't use it. It's the strangest thing. I can't even explain it in a way that makes sense, you know? It was one of those things that, like, I understood it was going to happen, so I kind of resigned myself to the fact that it would. And I think the idea was to protect Ospreay in a way, because he hasn't lost since last night, right? I mean, he hasn't lost a match, so I think it actually took away from the match a little bit. Like, you could have had Swerve go over Ospreay clean, because guess what? That's your world champion, and your world champion is supposed to be the best in the company. And if you lose a match to the best in the company, that's quite all right. You know, I mean, the Florida Panthers just won the Stanley Cup, and they lost 3 times to the Edmonton Oilers. They're still the Stanley Cup champions, so they didn't get hurt by the loss. So, you know, you could have done without it. And I mean, nobody believes, and this is the thing that really gets annoying, and they're starting to get very WWE like. Nobody believes that Ospreay was going to use the screwdriver. Nobody believes that. So to have him look at it and say, "Oh, you know, should I do this? Should I use it?" Like, it's bullshit, and it's almost insulting, you know. So I could have done without that, but at least they did a clean finish. At least there were no shenanigans in the finish itself. You know, we got a couple of. I think we got a couple of. I don't even know what Swerve's. What's the kick? Not the stomp, but what's the kick that he does? Is that big pressure, or is big pressure the finisher?
Big pressure is what he won with last night. The house
good.
call is the hook kick.
The house call. That's it. Okay, I wasn't sure what the kick was called, but you know, we got a couple of those, which was, you know, a little bit annoying, but I understood it. And at least we got a clean finish, so I'll give them credit for that. You know, but the interference, I'm sorry. And you know, I don't want to give excuses when something is baked in, because I think there was a little bit of this is baked into the story. It doesn't matter, because it takes away from the match, and they could have done without it. So, but I think everybody left. I think everybody left in a good place. I mean, we got Whose House, Swerve's house. Everybody was into it. After the match, I saw when you guys went off the air, there wasn't much, but Ospreay was like almost crying, you know, and I don't know how good or bad. I'm glad they did that off camera, because I don't know if you wanted that on camera. And at one point, I think you did see this, Swerve was consoling him in the ring and doing kind of the sportsmanship bit. So, you know, at least that's good. So, I mean, they, you know, they tied the story in nicely, where the guys are friends and they respect themselves, they respect each other, you know, and we saw that on TV. So at least they worked that element in. So, like I said, on balance, I thought it was pretty good, but you know, the interference was completely unnecessary.
It was a small blip, thankfully. It was maybe 90 seconds or so, because Prince Nana got involved, because he actually helped, or he got in Don Callis' way just to try to keep this a one-on-one match. And Ospreay had the screwdriver, threatened to hit Nana with it, and eventually was like looking at it like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
Just
and
right
Carl just said it in the chat here. If you want to bring it up, Will not taking his help to no reaction. And that was key, because nobody bought it. Like, absolutely nobody bought it in the building. I mean, maybe there was a little bit of, you know, maybe there was a little bit of that, but nobody bought that he was going to use the screwdriver. So yeah, that didn't help.
No. So, I mean, that very slight distraction, what was ended up aiding in the finish here, with Swerve hitting the Swerve stomp after, I believe, a house call.
Yeah.
Into a 2 count, but Swerve held on right away and just went for this wicked stomp right on Ospreay's right arm. A second house call directly into big pressure for the 3 count.
Yeah.
Swerve retains. I wrote underneath, thank the Lord he retained in a 27-minute and 6-second affair.
No, it was the right call. It would have made no sense at this point, just to put the title on Ospreay. And I think what you did last night was, I think you made a deposit on a long-term feud, because these guys, you know, you need long-term feuds to which you could go back to, right? You know what I mean? Like, you need Sting and Ric Flair, you need Dusty and you know, and Rick, and dare I say, Cena Orton, Hogan Savage. You need these feuds that you could return to. And I think Swerve and Ospreay, the way they work together and the respect that they have for each other, I think they made a decent deposit on that. Let's just not have the interference moving forward. Let's get this callous crap out of the way.
100%. I am going to highlight here a new chatter. Thank you so much, Aiden, for joining us this morning. Much appreciated. He looked at it a little bit different from a pay-per-view perspective, thinking it was a slog, one pretty good match, a great match, one of the best AEW main events he's ever seen. Perfectly highlights the issue with AEW, which we're going to tie into later. Consistency.
Yeah. I understand calling it a slog. I understand it because even by 11 o'clock, all right, I got Erin, I got my wife, I got Caitlin and Cameron. They're sitting there like, okay. And I don't understand. I don't know if this is a good time to talk about this, Jesse, not to go off on a tangent. I don't understand this obsession with 4-hour pay-per-views. It's not productive. It's not. I understand, again, baked in, but 3 hours, 3.5 hours. I mean, that's long enough. I mean, you could have wrapped this thing up by 11:30 and everybody would have been happy. Nobody needs to sit there for 4 hours. It's ridiculous. Double or Nothing was like 4.5. Mm-hmm. It's not necessary. I don't understand what this obsession is.
And part of the problem as well were the amount of pre-show matches too.
Yeah. I mean, I think there were 5. We showed up. I saw we showed up. I think Serpentico was coming out. I'm like, okay, I'm going to get a beer. See, who gives a shit about Serpentico? But you know what I mean? And even the matches on the pre-show are fairly long. Not for nothing. You got Rampage, you got Collision that you do diddly squat with. Take those shows the weekend of the pay-per-view and make them special editions. Make it the Forbidden Door edition of Rampage. This match, make Collision the Forbidden, and this way you spread it out. And Rampage is an hour, Collision is 2. You make your pay-per-view 3 to 3.5. Done. And that way you don't have people exhausted by the end. People were tired at the end of this show, and I'm telling you right now, they conserve their energy. Even during the Naito Moxley match, they were conserving their energy because they knew they were in for a long night and they wanted to enjoy that last match. So yeah, sorry, not to go to the left field there.
Yeah, I'm thinking 3.5 sounds good. You have so many championships now too, to where there's 7. I mean, if you count the 6-man, there's 8 AEW championships. You put 6 on the line, have 1, maybe 2 grudge feud matches, and call it good. There's your 8.
Yeah, simple.
Yeah, and I'll get to this right now. Just saying how Aiden likes all the talent and he just wants a reason to see them fight. I mean, I think in fairness too, just because this is a interpromotional pay-per-view, a one-off, this is for wrestling hardcores. That's the way Forbidden Door has been presented for the last 3 years. It's just kind of a one-off where we actually had a storyline match with Swerve and Ospreay. And that was really it. There's actually another story that was tremendous that I'll get into in the middle. And the match was fine, but the story afterwards even was good too. But yeah, most of it again is just kind of dream match feel, which by the way, let's get into Naito Moxley right now because I want to get it out of the way. This is one of the matches I paid the least attention to. I mean, in spite of the fact Mox was trying to make it with a big feel coming out in his New Japan jacket, his Death Rider theme, all of the above. The problem here is Tetsuya Naito looks very slow, very old, much like Tanahashi did earlier in the night. New Japan right now from their high main event scene is in trouble.
Oh yeah. Got a lot of miles on the tire with Naito. I mean, I love Naito, don't get me wrong, and I love Tanahashi, but these guys, it's just you can't expect high gear. I mean, you couldn't expect it 5 years ago, but they still squeezed it out, So yeah, this was a match that you could hear a pin drop in the arena. People didn't care. Okay. And I wonder if we're at a point, Jesse, where Tony is overestimating people's interest in New Japan. Okay. I know you have a moderate interest in New Japan. I know you check in from time to time. You're not, I don't think you're watching every show, but you're kind of keeping up. I've kind of fallen off the last couple of months, but I check back. I don't know if the majority of his fans, and I'm talking about his AEW customers. I mean, you are AEW. You got to think about what your people want. Judging by that match last night, I don't think they could give a rat's ass about the IWGP Championship. And, I know Ryan jokes about it a lot in the Facebook group, but that title design, that might actually be a factor. I mean, that's an ugly, it looks like the Divas title. It really does. And I've not been able to get past it. I haven't, but yeah, all those jokes aside, it was just a match that just was there. Naito and him just might not have the chemistry, and there might have even been a misunderstanding at the end. It looked like, because I saw like the finish, like he counted 3 and then he like moved his hand back and forth. Like, were you supposed to kick out? You know what I mean? Like, were you supposed to kick out of this or something? But yeah, just really a lack of investment in that championship.
With a very methodical spear attempt into the guardrail right next to the announcer's booth, where JR was selling everything like he was just scared to death, when in reality I'm at home going, that was ugly.
Yeah.
Oh man, Naito, what's going on here? I think, and I'll get into the guy who I would love to have short term before you get the Shotas and the Yoda Sujis up to speed, which, by the way, they're the same age that Hiroshi Tanahashi, Kazuchika Okada, Shinsuke Nakamura were when they won their first championships. So I think now's the perfect time to make that transition.
Yeah, they didn't do a good job. They did not do a good job transitioning, and I think that's hurt New Japan a lot. I mean, it's not that the talent isn't there. The talent is definitely there with the names that you mentioned, but they just did not, and they had the opportunity to do so. I mean, you had Okada, you had Ospreay, you had these other guys, that you could have, put over your Yodas and your Umanos and things like that, but they just didn't do it. And now they're scrambling. They're trying to, I know Jeremy could probably drop in a couple of nuggets on that. I know he does his show, but yeah, they're just in a weird place right now. I mean, hopefully within a year or two, those guys get a little more up to speed and you can use them in the main event scene, but it's just not a good situation right now.
Not at all. And I'm looking at this comment from Carl here as well, where they're not sure what they could do with Moxley, especially with the main event scene. Yeah, you're getting zero arguments from me. There's this tournament going on right now to fill out, and it might be already done, the last qualifying spots for the G1 Climax on the A and the B side. Good for them, by the way, to go back to the A and B blocks, just to 2, as opposed to going to the 7 with 4 or 5 guys in it. That's just
no, the other setup didn't make any sense. Now the 2 blocks is much better. Now they're doing a lot better with this. Absolutely.
Yeah. So kudos for them doing that as well. But no, it's just, age catches up with all of us. And the way that the New Japan style is, Naito may be 42 years old, but the way that he has wrestled for the last decade has taken a huge toll on his body. He had bad knees 5 years ago when he wrestled Okada in the main event of Wrestle Kingdom 12, when everybody wanted him crowned then as the champion. That was the main event match that was after Omega Jericho.
Okay. That's you're talking 2018, right? Yeah. Okay. Because didn't he, I feel like there was a Wrestle Kingdom, not to get too off topic, that Ibushi won the G1, but then Naito ended up winning the Intercontinental and the World title at Wrestle Kingdom. I feel like that might have been 2020.
Yep.
Yeah, because you know what it was? He got banged by the pandemic. That's what happened. Then he ended up losing to Evil, and Evil was a double champ for. Yeah. Okay, that's what it was. Yeah. Nah, they were old then. Listen. Why do you think Nakamura checked out in 2016? Because he wanted to live.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Look at Okada right now. He's wrestling a lot less. He's in 6-mans. He has a Continental title, which I would love to see defended more, because Eddie Kingston was doing a good job of that when he was champ. But to each their own on that. Yeah.
That's their way. That's their way of keeping him relevant. You keep a belt on him, so he's a champion, but he's not defending it. But hey, he's still a champ, so don't worry about it, guys.
JR with a slightly cringeworthy after Naito won the match, saying that's the bottom line because Naito said so.
Why?
17 minutes, 4 seconds. Overstayed its welcome.
Yes, it did. It got to that point, and you can even tell. So there's this thing. I don't know if it's a New York thing, and it's kind of annoying. They go. Did you hear that on the broadcast?
No, there were quite a few chants that I did hear.
Yeah, there's a thing like when you want to call somebody a dick, but you don't want to say the word, you go. Like it actually reminded me of high school, and not in a good way.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of that last night. And I think when the matches started to overstay their welcome, you heard that chant. So, yeah, there was a little bit of that going on.
I have all the times written down here as well. So we're going to continue to go backwards in a match that sort of surprised me in how good it was. Mercedes Moné versus Stephanie Vakir.
Yes.
Holy Stephanie Vakir. Let's see more of you.
Yeah. Is WWE, were they talking to her? Stephanie, about signing her?
Not to my knowledge, but I am not fully up to date on my CMLL talent when it comes to the women's division.
Okay. I might have been confusing her with somebody else, but this was a really good match that unfortunately got shit on because of stupidity. I don't know what happened. So the reaction for Mercedes was pretty faint coming out, but it wasn't terrible, and they were kind of with both women. I think everybody was just enjoying the match. And then some idiot with a Celtics jersey stands up, right?
It's not Justin Joint.
No. Sorry, Justin. Which, by the way, Justin is an interesting fan because he's the Yankees and the Celtics, so he's got both. I think he's trying to cover himself. That's to get attacked by any region. Love you, Justin.
49ers as well, West Coast base.
He's got it all. He's got it all covered. We love you, Justin. You're the man. But I mean, in New York, you stand up with a Celtics jersey, you're gonna get it. And then after that, we got F the Celtics, F the Red Sox. I think the Celtics chant was first.
Yep.
And then Mercedes was just booed the rest of the match, and they were with Stephanie. So I really feel like the crowd hijacked this match, a match that was really good. It really was. And Stephanie Vakir, I'd love to see her come over to AEW, or like I said, if WWE is talking to her. I wasn't sure, but she's a talent that should definitely make her way stateside.
They got a handful of highlights here. There was a great springboard from Stephanie, where I just said both women were absolutely bringing it. Vakir did these trademark stomps that she does in Mexico, where she was just driving Mercedes' head directly into the mat with their knees about 5. Actually, it was pretty much her entire lower body. Whew, that looked vicious.
Yes.
Great DDT that it went into a roll-up for a quick 2. There was a counter into a crossface from Mercedes, and that's when the booing started. And I'm assuming it's when the guy stood up in the Celtics shirt.
Exactly when it was. That's exactly what it was, and it screwed up the rest of the match, as Aiden is talking about in the in the chat here.
Absolutely. 16 minutes, 51 seconds on this match, where after a handful of struggles and a tremendous leg whip from Stephanie Vakir into the Andrade knees, we're running from corner to corner. We eventually got out of that, where Mercedes went into, or hit a moneymaker into a crossface. Quick tap. And Mercedes is your new champion. She starts to celebrate for about a minute, and then the music hits. How was the pop on this, by the way? It was up there in terms of loudest of the night, Britt Baker.
Very loud. Very loud. I would say, well, let's see. The biggest pop of the night was actually the Tron overhead finally getting turned on. The Tron was the biggest baby face, and we'll get to that in a second here. But as far as talent is concerned, Britt got the biggest pop of the night. As a return usually does.
It's overdue. Ryan's been calling for it for months.
Yeah.
I was hoping to see it a double or nothing, but I mean, hey, this is a great place to unveil it because you had Chris Statlander turning on Willow Nightingale after the match. So Mercedes was here by herself. This could be pointing to an all-in deal down the road. We're going to see where Britt Baker kind of fits in this pantheon in AEW because the women's division over the last year has changed a lot.
It has. And I mean, I feel like it's in a better place, but it's not where it should be. You know, I mean, especially with they have the talent. The talent's there. Talent's not the issue, but it's just a matter of how you feature it. You know, I mean, I think they've completely, they could have used Mercedes a little bit better or positioned her a little bit better. Like at this point, just position her as a heel. Just do it, So, that's where the crowd is going to go. You got Britt back now. I mean, just go the way you're supposed to go. Go with her as a heel. Go, they're going to cheer Britt, and everybody will be in a good place.
We'll see how everything goes with this Canadian tour because they're obviously going to be hitting the Owen pretty hard here over the next handful of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Believe they're in Canada July 10th for sure, 17th, and then I don't know about the 24th. And of course, Collision's in Dallas for at least 6 straight weeks. That small little amphitheater or whatever. But yeah. And yeah, I definitely agree, Aiden, that the DM Aiden's in the all-in match. No, you are not, sir. It would be Britt Baker and Mercedes Moné just seems to be the all-in match.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And then I wonder with Jamie Hayter when her arrival is, how does she factor into that?
Being from England, it makes it easy.
Yeah. The timing works.
Directly on the card. Right there at all in and directly after the match. All right. This one is a little bit controversial to me. I did not like it from the start. The TNT title ladder match, where there was one obvious choice the whole way.
Mm-hmm.
And the big reason you telegraphed it is Konosuke Takeshita is heading over to do the G1 Climax this year.
Yeah.
And judging by the crowd's response, they wanted him to take the TNT championship away. And you're not getting any arguments from me.
Nope. And the one spot that I noticed that was a real awkward moment was when Takeshita was heading up the ladder and Mark Briscoe stopped him. They were cheering Takeshita heading up the ladder. They got an issue with Takeshita. I mean, to have him still with the Callis family and losing. I mean, I guess you don't have to worry about it, and which is probably why Tony's like, okay, yeah, go to the G1 so I don't have to deal with, you know what I mean? Like I don't have to deal with it for 2 months. That's probably why he's letting them do that. But they got an issue, and I think after the G1, I think they got to revisit using him as a babyface because he just keeps losing, and the crowd just keeps cheering. And I think you got to turn him. I really do. Because to have a spot where Mark Briscoe, an obvious crowd favorite, is, not even getting any reaction, but, a little bit of booing, I guess, but not, that's just not a position I want Mark Briscoe in. So, yeah. There was not much of an investment in this match from an in-person perspective. I mean, to your point, you're spot on. Jack Perry was the only one that was going to win this. Having people like Dante Martin, you knew he wasn't going to win. El Phantasmo, they're not putting the title on an outsider, Leo Rush, et cetera. So there was really not much of an emotional investment. But, I mean, the spots were decent. I've never seen a 6-man ladder match before, so it was really interesting to watch, Excuse me as I wipe up the sarcasm. But, yeah, that's yeah.
It's part of the reason why I was checked out. And you mentioned Ospreay and not selling. How about Dante Martin?
Yeah, there was a little bit of that. Throughout the match. I think there was a spot. Was it Takeshita took him to the outside on a table and then he was up like a minute later? Or am I confusing that with somebody else?
There's a handful of them. So there was one where he hit a brainbuster. And Dante sold his neck. I'm like, all right, he's out of the match should be for almost the whole thing. He's up within 3 minutes.
Yes. Was that on the outside?
That was directly on the outside.
In the railing, right?
Yep. And then later on, he ends up. There was another spot where now he was reselling that injured knee, or the knee that he had constructive surgery in from a ladder match incident, by the way, where he's selling it like he hurt himself again. And then about 90 seconds later, he's the only one by himself back in the ring.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. This modern psychology, I mean, not all of it is garbage, but I think when it comes to ladder matches like this, it's just the trope. It becomes repetitive, and I start to check out.
Well, and that's one of my concerns with AEW is they're starting to get more WWE. They're starting to get to the WWE that we didn't like. Like, this is all the stuff from the late 2010s that we rejected and started to watch AEW because of it. And now you're bringing that stuff into your promotion. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
I will say that the Blue Thunder Bomb from Takeshita out to the outside on the ladder was awesome.
Yes.
Definite fan of that. I did like Mark Briscoe senton on the ladder.
What about
putting
the one
Takeshita through the table was pretty sweet.
What about the one where the table didn't break?
Yep, we had that one.
Oof. Everybody in the building gasped on that one.
Was that I believe Jack Perry was on? Yeah, Jack Perry was on the table. Was it Dante Martin that made the leap? Was one either him or El Phantasmo?
It was Briscoe. It was Briscoe that made that.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
And as soon as Briscoe made the leap onto Jack Perry, I'm like, okay, Jack Perry just won this match. You know, it's just because he was going to sit out there for a while and he wasn't going to do anything, and you know.
Foregone conclusion. Definitely agree with you, Aiden, where the ladder match came apart. It's actually getting some really good reviews online, which is really odd to me. I feel like if you've seen one ladder match these days, you've seen them all.
Well, it's getting good reviews because I think you have a lot of people in today's audience that just love the spot fests. And, you know, in wrestling, I feel like we're getting away from in-ring psychology. You know, we're getting away from, you know, you go back and watch, I'll just pick matches, you know, Bret Hart versus Kevin. Kevin Nash will tell you that his best matches were with Bret Hart. And a lot of those were in ring. A lot of those were, you know, working, you know, between the ropes. Go look at John Cena versus AJ Styles from SummerSlam 2016. I think that was a match where they never went to the outside, you know. But everybody thinks wrestling is sentons and dives onto ladders and tables breaking and things like that. And that's just not – it's okay in doses. It's okay, but it's just not, you know, wrestling. It's not the wrestling that I want to see anyway.
Yeah, car crashes are fine, but I mean once every couple of years now as opposed to once every 3 months.
Well, especially – and especially, Jesse, we have Money in the Bank coming up. Okay. And I mean, that's a different promotion. I understand that, but you know, that's happening this weekend, right? This Saturday.
Yes. My assumption is, by the way, folks, that might be the next time we are live. I know I will be able to watch it. So that's actually one of the rare instances where I can. And then I'm sure Ryan will probably want to get something out on Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, those ladder matches. Mm-mm.
Yeah, they just don't, considering there's been so many of them, and like, how many more spots can you do? How many more, you know, backbreakers on ladders can you do? How many more dives? I mean, it's just, they get repetitive after a while. So, yeah, I don't know.
Moving backwards once again, were you one of the folks chanting, "Please retire" to Chris Jericho?
I was chanting, I have American Express to give the discount because this was the match I chose to get up and get food. I was doing my husband duties because the wife wanted a drink and dessert. So I picked this match, and I think a lot of people had the same idea because the food lines were very long.
Ooh. Yeah, you're not getting many arguments with me on that one. There was a 14-minute match where I enjoyed watching Samoa Joe and Jeff Cobb tussle. I like the Samoa Joe Hook Shibata thing, especially since Samoa Joe has now held the world title, and with so many guys that are kind of in front of him, he's never going to get back there. So keep him with two guys that you could at least try to hook specifically. We've had a lot of discussions on him. Try to get him elevated. he looked fine last night. And him winning with the Judas effect was an interesting touch on Chris Jericho.
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know because, like I said, I was up, and then when the match was over, that's when I sat down. So I get a little bit of an incomplete, but I don't think the masses are too worried about this six bag, especially when the masses are chanting "Please retire."
I mean, Chris Jericho went for a move. Crowd starts chanting, "You still got it." The other half starts chanting, "No, you don't."
No, you don't. I didn't hear that, but I believe it. Yeah, I was talking to a few people out in the hall, and pretty much the same thing. This learning tree, bit is just not. It's not over. People don't care. It's just not something that It's just not something that anybody cares about. As far as the Hook Samoa Joe partnership, I don't mind it, but I'm still not sold on Hook. I'm just not. In the beginning, yeah, I thought he was cool and everything, and let's see him develop and whatnot. But as time has gone on, I'm just like, I don't get it. It's just not. It's not there for me. So we'll see. I'll give it time. I actually thought we were going to get a Joe Cobb one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think Cobb was defending the television championship, and I thought Joe would answer that, and we get that match one-on-one. But we got this instead.
Gosh, that would have been awesome.
Better than that. I wouldn't have gotten up for a drink in that match. I'll tell you that much.
No, you got a couple minute meet chance when Joe and Cobb hooked up. That was a lot of fun. Sadly, Aiden, I think the answer is going to be yes, because Chris Jericho can shoehorn himself into anything. Jericho and Samoa Joe is the Wembley match. I think if Chris has his way, which he usually gets it, nobody wants it.
What does this say? Joe wins and Hook wins and retires the FTW belt. Yeah, I have no problem retiring the FTW belt.
Yeah. I'm with you. It was interesting when Shane Douglas was out of action back in early 1998 when Taz claimed himself as the real world champion, and that's where the FTW origin started. Yes, I would also praise Big Bill as well. I think he's done a really good job, not just here with Chris Jericho, but also when he was with Ricky Starks in that tag team. So I think anything to get him on TV, I suppose, but I think a lot of the focus, unfortunately, is on Chris Jericho.
Yeah, it's a distraction. It's an unnecessary distraction, and I think it's becoming counterproductive or it's going to be counterproductive to Big Bill at some point, unless he turns on him.
Let's hope so. We're going to move upwards, and the guy that I mentioned way earlier in the show, I didn't mention him by name, but a person who should be the transitional New Japan or the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, Zack Sabre Jr.
Yeah.
Wrestled Orange Cassidy last night, and it was either my number 2 or number 3 match on the night. I think it just depends on who you are.
Mm-hmm.
I had high hopes for this because of what Orange has done with Will Ospreay in the past, and he goes under the radar and then he doesn't. There's just kind of a mixture. The guy is a very talented wrestler and he's different, but ZSJ can bring it out of everybody.
The problem with Zack Sabre Jr. is that his style isn't necessarily for everybody. It could be, I'm not saying I'm saying this, but it could be a little boring. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have the right opponent, it could really go bad. And I liked the match with Orange because I figured Orange had enough personality and entertainment value to kind of offset that. But it didn't feel like that in the building. Like I got a lot of, this was okay. Like nobody hated it. Nobody shit on it, but I didn't feel like they loved it.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, I have to really think about it. This is either my number 2 or my number 3 match of the night. And I'm probably going to position it at 3 now the more that I think about it.
Yeah, I think we have the same 1, 2, 3 because Ospreay Swerve is definitely number 1. This is number 3. And I have a feeling I know what number 2 is.
Yes. Which, by the way, Aiden, now I got to go back and watch the media scrum to listen to Zack Sabre Jr. He's got tremendous backstage promos in New Japan.
I wonder, not to go off topic, but I'm wondering if this is the year for Zack Sabre Jr. in the G1. I wonder if maybe you go, they put the title back, because I told my wife, I said they got to put the title back on Naito, because then he's going to transition to the next champion at Wrestle Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm fine with that. I think a match with Zack Sabre would work because it'll be more grounded. And that might be a little bit easier on Naito. So, and I mean, they've been teasing Zack Sabre Jr. occupying that top spot for a long time. And now that you got everybody, I mean, now that you got Okada and Ospreay out of the way, you know, you're not going to go Tsuji, you're not going to go Umino, you're not going to go Uemura. I think this is actually Zack Sabre Jr.'s year. So that's why they went back to Naito. So you could do Naito and Sabre at the Dome.
Definitely needs to be, because we mentioned how much longer this Forbidden Door is going to go, because AEW has poached all of the top talent that isn't broken.
Yeah.
Ospreay, Jay White, Okada.
Yeah. Oh, Jay White's still there? No, I'm just kidding.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He is in the semifinals, I believe, of the Owen. He defeated Rey Fenix.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he'll likely be wrestling the wild card unless they give the spirited Jeff Jarrett, after that wonderful 9-minute promo, a shot.
Yeah. I know Ryan's for it. My only issue with Jeff Jarrett being in this tournament is, why wasn't he in the tournament the last 2 years? I mean, he was there, you know, and
last year. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the problem, and listen, I get it. He had the partnership with Owen, and I get it. But my problem is, by anybody being in this tournament, you are saying that this is a potential world champion. And you're not including MJF, who lost the world title, hasn't gotten a rematch. You're not including Samoa Joe, who lost the world title, hasn't gotten a rematch. Moxley isn't in the like none of the top, like there's a lot of top guys not in the tournament, but Jeff Jarrett is. I mean, I think if there was a lot more top talent, I would deal with it. But because of that, and because he wasn't in it for 2 years, it just, I don't know. So I know Ryan's gonna be mad at me for that.
The Owen last year was more of an AEW Collision tournament. They had just debuted it, and I think the vast majority of the performers were either Collision exclusive or were on there almost.
Yeah, I mean, the idea. Well, it was the second, because they it started a couple. I think it was 2022 where it started. But I think last year, because Collision was new, I think they were trying to focus the tournament on Collision and get people to watch it. So, yeah. And Ricky Starks won, in case anybody forgot.
Oh, hi. I definitely remember. He's the only one not in the tournament. I mean, Willow won it last year. She's back in it. So Adam Cole obviously is injured, won it in 22. So this is a great point here, where Aiden thinks that part of him is thinking that Wrestle Dynasty is an out not to do Forbidden Door in 2025. You're getting zero arguments from me.
Okay. Wrestled, is that something they announced? Because this is part of the in-person experience. There were times where, like the overhead Tron, they would replicate what was going on the video board, and there were times that they didn't. It was very inconsistent. So like whatever was going on the video board, we couldn't see in our section. And there were several times throughout the show where we can't see, and I was texting Ryan about this. It was actually really frustrating. So.
It was one of the blips. It was directly after Britt Baker's reemergence, where they went to backstage. That's when they announced Wrestle Dynasty. It's towards the tail end of it.
Yeah, we couldn't. So that was a point. I could tell you 100%. That was a point where they did not replicate, because you know what they were doing at other times is they were replicating the video board. They were replicating it on the overhead, and at that point they didn't. So when is this taking place?
The day after Wrestle Kingdom. It's going to be a CMLL, Stardom, AEW, New Japan show.
Okay. Is that going to be at the Tokyo Dome?
If I recall seeing it correctly, yes.
So, okay. So that's
2 nights in a row.
Okay. So that's, and they usually do New Year's Dash the day after. So I wonder if that's replacing it.
Correct. That's right. New Year's Dash. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's usually sets up everything for the year.
Right.
All right. Well, here's the other match I didn't pay attention to, and I'm kind of sad that I didn't. Tony Storm. defending it against Mina from Stardom. From what I remember, this was actually a pretty solid match. I was getting a lot of that vibe online, and I went in Cage Match and saw that the rating was in the high sixes. So that's something that you'd normally put in like the B- range. So it wasn't as good as maybe some people online were saying. Did you pay attention to this match?
I did, and this was interesting because I was texting with Wade, and I said, not for nothing, they're losing the crowd because it feels like it's going too long. And he's like, Frank, it went 11 minutes. I go,
yeah,
didn't feel like that. It felt like it went longer. But I think the problem with this match is nobody cared. Number one, we all knew Mina Shirakawa was not winning the title. Number two, all anybody cared about was what was going to happen after.
And again, Tony Khan going back to the death spot, the women's match. Because the previous match before it, which we'll get into here in a second. Yep. The end ends up going the way of Toni Storm, of course. I thought her Statue of Liberty entrance was pretty interesting. The black and white after that. Yeah. She's always finding ways to at least entertain the crowd. Tremendous stuff there. She gets the win with the Storm Zero. And then Mariah May has them all hug and kiss it out after.
I mean, that's fun. That's all well and good and everything, but does anybody care about the world title? That's the problem with this thing being on Toni Storm. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about the championship. Nobody cares about competition for who's the best woman in the company. All anybody cares about is the gimmick.
And another thing is she's been delivering her best promos, the Collision before the pay-per-views, I think all year long. Been very good. So again, it's something you either got to go out of your way online to watch or you miss it.
And how many people are watching it? 200. I mean, what was the Collision rating? 300,000. I mean, that's that's the problem.
It's a definite problem. Ryan, you're always welcome.
Hey, I know that guy.
Exactly. We will see you, hopefully, I believe I said Sunday morning, which will be the Money in the Bank review. And if not, we'll be back next week because our usual Thursday will, of course, not be our traditional flagship show. It is as it is. Let's say it is my son's birthday, but that's not the number one reason why we celebrate. It's the 4th of July.
There you go. There you go.
Happy 3rd birthday, buddy.
Happy birthday.
All right. Here's the match that I will give number 2 to. Bryan Danielson, Shingo Takagi.
Yes. Very well received in the building. The one thing that where I was texting with Brandon, were they going heavy on the Danielson might be out, he might be dead, or it seemed like they were going heavy on that in the end, which I kind of wish they wouldn't do. Like we had the convulsion spots at I think it was Dynasty against Will Ospreay. I can't remember.
Yes. Right after the Tiger Driver 91, which he hasn't used ever since.
So that's getting a little repetitive, but I mean, this was really good. I don't, if I'm remembering, because it was so early in the show, I don't know that in person people appreciated this enough because, again, it's New Japan. And as opposed to 2 years ago when this thing got off the blocks, everybody was hot for it. I don't know that people appreciate how good Shingo Takagi really is. And he can ball, He knows what to do in there. Okay. I'm not sure that people were really getting it, but I mean, the psychology was great between the two. We got the tap out for the finish. I thought it was going to be over with the Psycho knee. I have to say, I got suckered. I thought it was going to be over. But seeing how they ended it, I was like, okay, they had to end this with a submission. That's just the way it works with these guys. But I thought it was the second. Yeah, I'll give it the second best match. I can't put it over. I can't put it over Ospreay and Swerve. But yeah, this was definitely the second best match on the card.
Yeah, the stakes for Swerve and Ospreay were a lot higher in spite of the fact that the winner of this is going to get a shot, hopefully, at Swerve here with All In. This match was second longest of the night, and rightfully so, 20 minutes, 19 seconds. where, again, right after that Busaiku knee, Brian went in with this nasty-looking arm lock, pulling back on Shingo's shoulder, and he either just whispered or whatever the hell, tap out, pass out. You really couldn't see it. Danielson gets the win.
Yeah. No, really strong match. There's a question about him winning the Owen. I mean, I think you could make the argument for it. I don't see Swerve losing the title, so Swerve Danielson at All In. And I think you guys have discussed, this might be a spot where hot potatoing the title could work. I mean, you could give Danielson that one last stand, and have Swerve win it back in his home state at Wrestle Dream. You could do that. I don't know. We'll see. That's jumping ahead a few steps, but I think Danielson is a solid choice to win this Owen. Given the match that they had last night, it's definitely a statement match.
I think Hangman is going to be the wild card. I would like to see Danielson win the Owen, but they could be leading to Swerve Hangman down the road for All In as well at Wembley.
Yeah, and then that's possible. And that gets interesting because I think Swerve swept the series so far. I feel like there's a Hangman win in there.
There's a draw.
There is a draw. Okay.
2-0-1 in the Swerve side.
Okay. Yeah, it's going to get interesting. If Hangman's the wild card, it's interesting.
Very much so. So there's a couple of little things. We had mentioned Danielson selling on the outside after Shingo caught him and gave him a twisting DDT, where that's when he was doing the convulsions with the neck.
Mm-hmm.
There is just a lot of really good counters. But again, this is stuff I've seen from Shingo Takagi since I've been watching.
Yeah.
Tremendous stuff. And then I have to give this a shout out. It's already getting old, but I mean, when Nigel McGuinness does this, I mean, I think I'm going to have to say this. He, in his usual hatred for Bryan Danielson, he says, "Why is Danielson never held accountable? How quick are we to forget when he spat on Eddie Kingston?" And then he said, "Gave him that huck to him."
Oh, no, he said that.
In a very English accent that had me laughing quite hard.
Oh, God. Yeah, he where is that going anyway? Like is he getting back in the ring? Like, it just seems
I want to see it, but I mean, everyone has been getting medically cleared the last decade. Edge, Bryan Danielson, Lita, anybody else? Saraya.
Saraya, Copeland, Christian. Yep. It's possible.
Yeah, I think Aiden, I would like to see Danielson. I think we all are in unison. We want to see Danielson Swerve more than we want to see Hangman and Swerve once again.
Yeah, Hangman and Swerve, I feel like we've seen on 2 pay-per-views already, right? Because I believe they were Wrestle Dream last year and Full Gear. So I think you've kind of made your money with that. Danielson and Swerve deserves a big spot, and I think All In could be that spot.
All right. Last 2 matches, which were the first 2. The 6-man tag. It was the Elite. Of course, Kazuchika Okada being a part of it. And now taking on the Acclaimed and Hiroshi Tanahashi. Tanahashi looked slow like always. Yep. Max Caster with a very cringe long rap that in some circles was received okay, including Fox News. Hint, hint. There's that on Twitter.
Yeah.
Oh, rough stuff there. The only thing I actually enjoyed was a video package with the Elite or the Young Bucks just stating kind of the cases where they've been coming along, and they blurred out Kenny Omega's face every video.
Yeah. Couldn't tell you because the video that was a spot where the video was blocked. So
calling Kazuchika Okada the best bout machine.
Yep. Well, see that at some point whenever Omega gets back.
We hope that he does. I thought some of this match was just okay. It was 13 minutes. The Young Bucks missing the Stinger splashes were pretty interesting to me. I actually liked, Okada is a very serious wrestler, but he has really good comedic timing too.
He does. And I really wish that's not what we were getting from Okada You know, I really wish we were getting more of what we saw in New Japan. I mean, I understand it's not going to be the same matches, but you know, the comedic side is, and you're going to get people that say, well, it works. You know, he really does it well, and he plays well with it. But it's just like that's not the best. That's not why you sign someone like Okada. You know, all anybody really gave a crap was Okada versus Tanahashi. Quite frankly, you know, as far as the rest. You know, as far as the rest of the match, I mean, there was nothing noteworthy. You know, you mentioned the Stinger splashes. Like, I'm sitting there watching, like, what? Sting's not coming out of retirement, so why are you doing that? Like, what's the point? You know, like, I really hate this passive aggressive stuff with the Bucks. I really do. It just doesn't. It's annoying. It really is. I mean, you know, but enough about my issue with the Young Bucks. The Okada Tanahashi I mentioned, and the rap was just not very. And AEW audio is just not that good in the building. Like, and it always seems to be an issue, especially in this building. Like, I couldn't make out half of the rap. I'm asking my wife, like, what did he say? What? I don't remember. All I heard was the Biden stuff, and that was it. You know.
And the only line that I kind of liked was the Elite, we're stopping it here and we'll kill you like you did Okada's career.
Oh, stop.
That was fine, but the rest of it was just ugh. Which, by the way, Aiden, I had this in my notes. Push Bowens. I would 100% have this in my notes.
I'm glad Aiden brought that up, because I'm watching Bowens perform and I'm like, put him in the Owen tournament. Like that's a guy. That's a guy, or maybe not this this one, but if they're doing the C2, put him in the C2.
There you go.
Build your next stars, because you gotta, what is the future? What is the future of this promotion? I mean, you've got Swerve, you've got Ospreay. They're going to be around for a while. Okay. You're obviously not building around Okada. Okay. You're obviously, Moxley, he's getting up there. What is your next wave? Anthony Bowens can be a part of that wave.
He 100% can, which I actually had written with Okada getting the win with the Rainmaker again. Sales have been kicked out of we're approaching 3 full months now, where I wrote, fun match where I'd like to see Anthony Bowens get a singles run in spite of this mediocre tag division.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing like with Montez Ford over in WWE. I mean, if you start now, you can get him into a place where he could be a single star for you next year, but you got to start, because Max Caster's bringing him down.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to get to, obviously, one of the franchise building blocks here to end this show. But Ryan, thank you.
Ryan,
much appreciated. I do the best I can. I mean, I learned from the best when it comes to steering ships. So we definitely have that, which I didn't, by the way, kind of highlight. We're about 10 minutes left in the show here. Super chats are always welcome. Have any questions related here in the next maybe 5-10 minutes while we're talking about MJF and his inclusion in Forbidden Door, you can throw some super chats in there just as a thank you so much. Again, patreon.com/TopRopeNation. $5 to join us. We do a ton of stuff behind the paywall. I have my own show, and then Classics, which is what everybody pays for. Month of July, that's going to be coming up here very, very soon. Yes, it is very low-hanging fruit, Carl. I believe it's, the shtick has definitely run its course.
Yeah.
0 questions there. All right, let's get to the hometown guy. MJF Hechicero. It went under 10 minutes.
All it needed to be. And it's funny because he got the reaction coming out, no question. You heard it. It was fairly loud in the building, but then it tapered off. And like during the match was fine. The finish got a positive reaction, but not the strong reaction that we expected. They're in a weird position with MJF because I feel like they're trying, and I don't remember how you guys felt about the whole story with Adam Cole, but I feel like they're trying to wash the stink of that story because I think it really brought down MJF, quite frankly. And I think they're trying to bring out, and I was explaining this to my kids last night, they're trying to bring out more of a wrestling side of MJF, not just his character work. His character work is, fairly strong, although maybe not so much last year. I mean, I thought he was largely uncool for a long period of time. Another conversation for another day. But they're trying to show more of a wrestling side. So that's fine, and I think eventually they'll get to a good place. But just, from an in-person perspective, it wasn't what I expected. I expected a lot more. I expected a lot more of a strong reaction for MJF, and they didn't get it. I don't know if it was a lack of investment. I mean, the CMLL guys, I don't know how much people care about those guys. It certainly didn't feel that way in the building, so maybe that had something to do with it. But they're in an interesting spot with MJF. I'd be curious to see what happens within the next 6 months. Another guy that's obviously, a cornerstone of the promotion.
I mean, I would imagine we're leaning towards Ospreay MJF at All In.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, with him showing up to watch the match later on and everything they've been doing on TV, I would guess for the International Championship, I guess.
We don't know there. I mean, Daniel Garcia, which was really, really weird, was kind of highlighted in the box.
Yeah.
The main event.
Yeah. And like, Daniel Garcia is not a guy that's really been pushed as important.
No.
So just to have him up there was just like, I couldn't make out who it was for a second. And then it took me, a second to figure it out. And I'm just like, that's not okay. That's a match on Wednesday. Like, big deal. It just didn't really hit.
Yep, you got the spring break match, Ospreay, Daniel Garcia for the AEW International title, which will probably be the main event on top of a couple of Owen matches. I mean, they did an okay job last night with furthering wanting to see AEW Dynamite on Wednesday night, which I know Aiden asked that question earlier. I mean, my answer is just because I've been invested in most of what's been going on AEW. Yeah, of course. I mean, with my son's birthday, as soon as he goes down for bed on Wednesday night, I'll be watching.
There you go. I'm going to have to watch Thursday morning. I'm working, unfortunately, Wednesday night. So that'll be the end of my trip. But, I mean, there was enough. I mean, if you're an AEW fan, you're going to watch the show no matter what. It's not, what they do on a pay-per-view is not going to really determine whether or not I watch the program on Wednesday. I mean, I think we're at a point where if you're watching the promotion, you're watching the television and you're watching the pay-per-views. Maybe not so much Rampage and Collision, but at least the main stuff. So I think we're at that point.
Exactly. I don't tape Collision anymore, which is interesting it's just been tough. Really tough.
No, neither do I. I took it off. I took Collision off and I took Rampage off.
Let's highlight this. Oh my gosh. Jungle Boy, Escape TNT, Code Perry. Another great pay-per-view. AEW 2024's pay-per-views never fail. I think the only one that this one. So let's see. Revolution nailed it. Dynasty nailed it. Double or Nothing was fine.
Yeah,
and this was better than Double or Nothing.
These last two pay-per-views, they've been good professional wrestling shows, basically. By the way, with Jack Perry, I don't know if you caught it at the end of the match. He always looks up. He always looks up to the sky when he wins a match. I think he still gets emotional about the father not being here.
I could see it, especially since Luke was the one that brought him to WWE events back in the day. Jack was getting some camera time back then.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah. Hechicero, by the way, CMLL technical legend, so very similar to like a Zack Sabre Jr. and such, which I know he's wrestling Zack Sabre in about a month and a half down in Mexico, which will be a lot of fun. But
yeah.
Yep, MJF got the win with a Panama Sunrise and a Brainbuster.
Panama Sunrise, huh? Really trying to wash the Adam Cole feud, are we?
I think that was actually almost a blessing in disguise, and the only curse it was for was Adam Cole.
Yeah.
Just injury prone now, and yeah, they were able to easily write him off TV because he's done for a while.
I know Michael Jenkinson's gonna jump up and down when I say this, but if I never see him again, I won't miss him. Sorry. After Adam Cole, baby, what is there that I can't see from 20 other guys?
Yeah, it's 100% true. He's definitely lost his way, and oh, by the way, I think his birthday's on Friday, July 5th.
Oh,
so
happy birthday.
Exactly. We hope you enjoy your birthday. Frank, any other closing thoughts from just being in attendance, the ambiance, all of it?
Yeah, I mean, just no Tony Khan, which was a little surprising. Usually he makes his usually he makes his presence known before a show starts, and he didn't. So I don't know if he was just busy or he just didn't really feel the pay-per-view, you know. So I was a little surprised about that. I wanted to mention, we were talking off air about the merchandise, and one of the things that I think helps a promotion, helps the connectivity, and helps get more fans is merchandise. And every one of these shows, last night included, like, you had a good selection of event shirts. Like you had, like I'm wearing right now, for anybody that, you know, is watching on video, the Forbidden Door shirt. Great. But no individual wrestlers, you know, no like Swerve shirts, no Hangman shirts, no Ospreay, nothing. They had dolls, the figures, $100. So who's gonna lay out $100? I'm telling you, yeah, $100 okay. Who's gonna lay out $100 for a figure? I mean, come on. They had the belts and they had a couple of other odd little things, but nothing really that you're gonna want to spend your money. And there were only 2 stands. So like when you showed up, you know, you want to get merchandise, but the line is a city block and the show is starting. So it's like, well, I want to see the show. So now I got, you know what I mean? Like now that was one of the reasons I got up during the learning tree, the 6-man tag, because I'm like, all right, this is my opportunity to get merchandise because it's not going to be a line, you know, but I'm missing a match because of it. So that was that. And that's, you know, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse when I talk about that because it was the same problem at Double or Nothing. And it just continues to be an issue. And I mean, you go to a WWE show and they got everybody. I mean, they got people from the past, they got current people. You know, so merchandise is definitely an issue. Were you going to say something about the merch?
Oh, I was going to say it hasn't been relevant, I'd say, since Revolution 2020.
Okay.
They had some good stuff in the initial stages, but that's, of course, when you're just getting the product launched, and now you're seeing so many more performers in the promotions. But that's still not a legit excuse to have nothing when it comes from an inventory perspective to merch at pay-per-views. When people are paying good top dollar, why wouldn't you want to print out some of your best merchandise to make more money on site?
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. So it was the same thing at Double or Nothing last year. When I went to World's End, same thing. So, you know, we'll see if they ever fix it. I've alluded to this a couple of times, and I don't know who owns this, but the viewing, all right, the production. You have this overhead Tron. Now, if you're sitting in the lower bowl, it's not a problem because you could see the video board. You could see what's going on back there. But if you're sitting in the 200s and above, the Videotron blocks the main board, so you can't see what's going on if they don't replicate what's going on the video board to the main Tron. You're seeing Forbidden Door. You're seeing the Forbidden Door logo. Guys, I know I'm at Forbidden Door. Can you please replicate what's going on? Because they were showing like the next match. I can't see it. You know, if people aren't studying the card on the way, they can't see it up there. And there were like 2 or 3 times we were getting a "we can't see" chant. All right. They pull this for the Dynamites that I've been to this arena. And listen, the UBS arena is new. You can't tell me that they can't replicate what's going on the main board on the. Come on, I mean, this is 2024. You have the technology. My poor daughter, like, she's got to watch like she's got her phone and she's zooming in on the match so she can see the match because they're not putting it on the on the main Tron above the ring. So that's definitely an issue from a production standpoint, and I think they got to work on that moving forward.
It's the little things that matter. So, Jack, we're actually closing this show, by the way. We've already gone through the entire card. So, Swerve Ospreay was our number one. I think we had Danielson, Shingo 2, and Orange Cassidy, Zack Sabre Jr. 3. And I almost put that too.
That's fair. And I mean, the women's match, I mean, Tony versus Mina Shirakawa was fine, but I think the other women's match was a lot better. It just unfortunately got sabotaged by the crowd.
Big time.
Mercedes versus Stephanie.
Yeah. No, you definitely a fair point. I know, especially when it comes to European and having to stay up late just to watch it, all that good stuff. Yes, we are very fortunate here in the United States. Frank, anything you want to promote?
Yeah. So I got the latest edition of Pro Wrestling Then and Now coming out this week over at the Torch. We're going to be doing King of the Ring 1994. So speaking of Owen Hart, yeah, get to go back and relive the King of Hearts. Excuse me. I've kind of got my hands in a couple of pots right now. Fellow patron Zach Haydorn, our good buddy, who's running Brass Ring Media. I'm writing the hits and misses for mostly WWE pay-per-views, but I'll sneak them in for AEW and NXT when I have a chance. I'm going to be cutting one over there for this show with an in-person perspective, as well as for the Torch as well. So I'll be working on that in the next couple of days. And that's pretty much it. Life is kind of crazy. Work is kind of crazy right now. So I'm doing as much as I can to keep my hand in the sauce, so to speak, with wrestling media. I love doing this stuff. I love doing these shows. So, I do them when I can. And on social media, it's at Frank Peteani. That's at Frank Peteani X, Facebook and Instagram. I don't post a ton, but I respond if you message me. So feel free to reach out and chat some pro wrestling.
I am not Ryan Drosty, but I did want to highlight Frank Peteani's name underneath there as well. So Ryan will be back in the host chair again. I'm assuming it's going to be Sunday morning if we review Money in the Bank, which I am available before, but it's something we're going to talk about here off air. Jesse C. Velasquez is where you can find me on Twitter. I want to thank the active chat. To no one's surprise here, when the shows are a little earlier in the day, you can definitely get more response. We usually go live Thursday nights, 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central Time. We're now going to be hitting midsummer here soon, so I don't know what that's going to look like from a live chat perspective, but we're always putting out content, and again, weekly basis, usually every Thursday, recaps of PLEs or pay-per-views, and then, of course, on the Patreon, patreon.com/Top Rope Nation. Join the Facebook group. We have over 350 members. There's always discourse going on there. Somebody will bring up something, and we'll go to task on it. Any other closing remarks, Frank?
No, I'm all again. Appreciate you having me on the show, and I appreciate the everybody chatting in the room. It was good talking to everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you for the live perspective.
Oh, my pleasure. No, it was great. It was great to be there. I didn't want to miss it, and I was glad I was able to offer some in-person nuggets from All Elite.
Yes, especially that main event. Woo.
Yes, sir.
And for Frank Peteani, my name is Jesse Velasquez. That has been episode 347 of Top Rope Nation. I'm going to end this the proper way for once. And as always, we'll see you on the flip side. Take care, everybody.
Whose house?